friend of mine, Rachel, was travelling back to her apartment from work late one night. She was a little bit nervous about taking the train so late, but she figured that there probably wouldn't be many people riding it, so she decided to avoid paying a big taxi fare and take the train anyway. Now, if you've ever been in a train station late at night on your own, you'll have heard all the noises that give the place its eerie atmosphere. The wind whistles down the tunnels, the rails sing as trains pound down the tracks, rushing ever closer, and finally the ear-piercing screeching of metal grinding on metal as trains brake approaching the platform. It was all there. The station was normal, filled with all those sounds, but yet it was strangely abandoned. When she got down to the station, she was surprised to see that there was in fact 3 people already sitting there. 2 large suited men in dark sunglasses and a little girl in between them. From what Rachel told me, she was surprised to see such a young girl in a train station at this time of night. But based on how she was dressed and her designer sunglasses, Rachel figured that the suited men were some kind of bodyguards for the daughter of someone wealthy or famous. So Rachel took her seat across from these 3. She thought that if anyone gave her trouble while she was there, she was sure that these 2 big guys would help her out. In between texting her best friend and checking her emails, a man in his late 20s or early 30s started shuffling down the steps towards the platform at the other end of the station. He was clearly really tired and totally unkempt. His shirt was wrinkled and definitely not clean, and he had what looked like a few days worth of stubble. When she looked closely, she thought she might have even seen a few spots of blood on his trousers, but she couldn't be sure. This young guy was exactly the type of individual that Rachel had hoped to avoid on her ride home, but it was going to be okay because this bedraggled figure was certainly no match for the 2 burly men who sat across from her. As time ticked on, getting ever closer for her train to arrive, Rachel noticed something really odd. This young man at the other end of the platform would just glance up and slowly look at Rachel, and then at the men, and then at the little girl, and back to Rachel again. He did this several times, and then every so often he would get up and move a few seats closer to Rachel, a few seats closer to the men, and a few seats closer to the little girl. Understandably, Rachel's pretty nervous at this point, and although she was quite confident that these suited men could fight him off. However, the men didn't even move, didn't even flinch as this almost homeless looking dishevelled man repeated this process of looking at the other 3 people on the platform before moving a few seats down. After several repetitions of this process, he was getting really close to Rachel, almost seated right next to her, and yet she was the only one who seemed bothered by this. The suited men and that little girl stayed put. Rachel's heart pounded as she counted the seconds until her train arrived and she could get back to her apartment. How much longer would these suited men allow this threatening behaviour to go on? How much closer would they let this guy get? Her tension heightened as the screeching of the train arose, its piercing howl ramping her fear up. The young man was almost close enough for her to smell the dirt on his skin. Rachel looked over to the 2 men, her eyes wordlessly pleading with them to intervene. The train finally stopped at the platform. An instant the doors opened, the young man grabbed her and pulled Rachel, screaming onto the train. She fought, she clawed at his face, she kicked him and she spat. She screamed for help from the 2 men. She even begged the little girl to do something. Images of what could happen to her flashed through Rachel's mind. Being mugged, raped, murdered, all of them. As the doors closed, she desperately reached for the 3 other people on the platform, trying to get some sort of grip on something, anything, enough to leave the young man left on the train and her in the safety of the 2 bodyguards. As the train began to pull away, Rachel realised the futility of her situation. As she slid to the floor, watching the station, she turned to face her kidnapper. He was panting. He quickly gasped out, "Ma'am, I need you to calm down. I'm not going to hurt you. My name's John. I'm a student in medical school. I work with dead bodies all day. And I have to tell you, that little girl wasn't alive.